You've been lied to. They told you mastery takes 10,000 hours. They told you it takes decades, talent, and luck. But the truth is simpler and more brutal. You don't need 10,000 hours. You need focused hours. You need deep repetition, not endless motion. This is your shortcut, a mental operating system to learn faster, retain deeper, and outpace everyone who's still trying. No fluff, no motivation, just precision. Welcome to the 10,000-hour shortcut. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Stop collecting information. Start training execution. You don't need another book. You don't need another course. You don't need another list of top 10 habits of the successful. You need to move. You need to act. You need to train execution. Because right now, you're drowning in information and starving for action. You think you're learning, but what you're really doing is consuming. And consumption feels like progress. Feels productive. But it's a lie. Every time you read another article, watch another tutorial, or take another note, you get a small rush. That's dopamine. The chemical reward for the illusion of growth. But you're not growing, you're delaying. Knowledge unpracticed is decay. Say it again. Knowledge unpracticed is decay. You can memorize every strategy, every framework, every secret method, but until you apply it, it dies inside your head. It evaporates. That's why the smartest people often struggle the most. They know too much and do too little. They're professional learners. Amateur doers. You have to flip that. You have to become a professional executor. When you first learned to ride a bike, did you read a book about it? No. You climbed on, fell off, scraped your knees, got back up, and learned balance through failure. That's how real learning happens. Through motion. Through friction. Through repetition. You didn't analyze how the pedals turned or how to maintain center of gravity. You just tried again until your body figured it out. And that's the model you forgot as an adult. Somewhere along the way, you traded doing for studying. You traded progress for preparation. You started believing that once you learn enough, you'll finally start. That day never comes. Because information without execution has no finish line. You have a choice. You can keep pretending that preparation is progress, or you can start training execution. Training execution means building a bias for action. It means replacing "what should I learn next?" with "what can I do right now?" It means valuing feedback over theory. If you're learning to code, stop watching tutorials all day. Build something ugly. If you're learning to write, stop outlining endlessly. Publish something messy. If you're learning to speak, stop memorizing perfect lines. Go talk, stutter, fail, repeat. That's how skill forms. Not through comfort, through collision. Execution is friction, and friction is the teacher. Every repetition, every attempt, every ugly draft builds neural connections that no textbook can replace. You can't think your way to mastery. You can only do your way there. Let's be clear, this is not an attack on learning. Learning matters. But learning must serve action. The moment you stop applying what you know, your brain stops retaining it. It's like trying to store water in your hands. It slips away. Action is the container. You've seen it before. Someone reads 20 books on business but never starts one. Someone spends months planning workouts but never lifts a weight. Someone watches motivation videos every morning yet never builds momentum. Information is cheap. Action is rare. That's why action wins. Every single time. Here's the rule. 1 hour of doing beats 10 hours of studying. Let's test it. You want to learn a new language? You spend 10 hours reading grammar guides, watching pronunciation videos, reviewing flashcards. You know the language, but can't speak it. Now, instead, spend 1 focused hour speaking badly with a native speaker. You'll stumble. You'll forget words. You'll make mistakes. But your brain will feel the tension, the urgency, the real feedback loop, and it will rewire. Fast. That's the shortcut. Doing forces adaptation. Studying delays it. The same goes for fitness. You can read every study on muscle growth, or you can spend 1 hour under the bar. The bar teaches you what no research paper can: resistance, control, tempo, recovery. Knowledge is information. Training is transformation. That's the key. Transformation lives in tension, not theory. But most people are addicted to the comfort of knowing. Feels safe. Feels smart. It keeps you away from judgment, from risk, from real measurement. Because once you act, reality responds. And that's terrifying. Reality doesn't care how much you've studied. Reality measures results. So people stay in the comfort of the almost ready phase. I'll start when I learn more. I'll begin once I'm confident. I just need to prepare. No. You don't need more confidence, you need contact. You don't need more information, you need iteration. You don't need their permission, you need movement. That's the only way mastery happens. Start by setting a new rule for yourself. For every hour you learn, you must spend an hour doing. 1-to-1 ratio. Input to output. Theory to friction. If you read about it, practice it. If you watch it, replicate it. If you plan it, execute it the same day. This simple rhythm changes everything. Because repetition creates retention. And repetition through action rewires your identity. You'll start to see learning differently, not as consumption but as fuel. Every new idea becomes a tool to use, not a note to store. You stop being a student of knowledge and you become a student of experience. That's where acceleration lives. Here's the truth: no one remembers what you know. They remember what you build. No one respects your information. They respect your execution. So stop collecting. Stop preparing. Stop waiting. The world doesn't need more thinkers. It needs doers. Because the doers are the ones who discover the real shortcuts. Not by guessing, but by getting their hands dirty. You don't need to know how everything works before you start. You need to start so you can see how it actually works. Action reveals what theory hides. That's the law. That's the shortcut. So let's bring it back to the core truth. Knowledge unpracticed is decay. Action repeated becomes mastery. 1 focused hour of doing beats 10 scattered hours of studying. Every time. If you want to learn fast, act fast. If you want to learn deeply, fail deeply. If you want to master anything, start before you're ready, and stay until it's second nature. You don't need another strategy. You need execution bias. Train it every day. The bias to do. The instinct to move. The refusal to wait. Because the 10,000-hour shortcut isn't a trick. It's the discipline of execution. That's where speed lives. That's where transformation hides. You've just reclaimed your first weapon, the power of doing. You've learned to break the addiction to endless learning. You've built the first muscle of mastery, execution bias. You mastered the fear of starting. Now, let's talk about what happens next, when you finally start focusing on the depth of your work instead of the length of your time. Chapter 2, The Law of Focused Depth. You don't need more time. You need depth. 3 hours of deep, undistracted focus will outlearn 30 hours of scattered effort. That's not theory, it's biology. Your brain rewires through intensity, not duration. Depth beats duration. Every time. Because when you go deep, you compress time. When you go deep, you multiply results. When you go deep, the world slows down, and you speed up. This is the law of focused depth. And once you understand it, you stop wasting your life in half attention. Right now, you live in fragments. You check your phone mid-task. You toggle between windows. You chase one thought, then another, then another. You think you're multitasking, but what you're really doing is context switching. And every switch costs you focus. Every distraction taxes your depth. That's the price most people pay without realizing it. The tax of distraction. The more distracted you are, the slower you learn. The more fragmented your focus, the shallower your mastery. Depth is the multiplier. Distraction is the tax. Say it again. Depth is the multiplier. Distraction is the tax. Every deep hour compounds. Every distracted minute dissolves. Let's talk science. Your brain has something called myelination, the process of wrapping neural pathways in protective layers that make them faster, stronger, more efficient. You know when that happens? Not when you casually dabble. Not when you half focus. It happens when you are fully immersed, when you push through mental resistance, when your attention is total. That's why deep work accelerates growth. Your brain literally rewires itself in real time to handle the level of depth you give it. It adapts. It strengthens. It becomes a faster version of you. So the question is, are you training a deep mind or a distracted one? Depth is a skill. And like any skill, it must be trained. You train it by creating conditions that force immersion. Turn off your phone. Close your tabs. Eliminate noise. Then commit. One task. One session. One block of time where the only thing that exists is the thing you're building. This is where real mastery begins. When there is no escape hatch. No pause button. No alternate task to run to when it gets hard. You have a choice. You can live on the surface, busy, scattered, constantly working, or you can dive deep and actually move the needle. Depth doesn't happen accidentally. It's a decision, a discipline. Think about how you learned to drive. The first time, every motion required full focus. Hands tight on the wheel. Eyes scanning every mirror. Every action conscious and deliberate. You were in deep focus. That's why you learned fast. Now, years later, you can drive and hold a conversation. Your brain automated the skill because it was once trained in depth. The same law applies to everything: coding, writing, design, music, leadership. Depth builds automaticity. Distraction builds confusion. You can't automate what you never mastered deeply. Let's take two learners. Person A studies for 10 hours a day, but half that time is spent checking messages, switching playlists, watching how-to clips mid-task. Person B studies for 3 hours. No phone, no noise, total focus. Person A feels busy. Person B becomes excellent. Why? Because focus compounds. Focus turns hours into impact. Depth is the multiplier. Distraction is the tax. Most people pay the tax their entire lives, scrolling between tasks, staying busy, staying stimulated, but never building the capacity for deep, powerful attention. But the top 1%? They live in depth. They guard it. They structure their entire day around it. Because they know every deep session builds an unfair advantage. Let's make this practical. To train depth, you need two things: boundaries and blocks. Boundaries. You must protect your focus like it's oxygen. No phone, no tabs, no notifications. The world can wait. You don't need their permission to disconnect. Blocks. Work in solid, uninterrupted blocks of time. 45 minutes. 90 minutes. 2 hours. Whatever you can handle. Once you start, don't switch. Don't pivot. Don't look up. You're training your brain to stay longer in deep attention. At first, it will resist. It will itch for distraction. But that's the test. That's how you grow. Discomfort is the doorway to depth. You have to walk through it. And here's the hidden truth. Depth isn't just about work. It's a way of living. You can live shallowly, half present in conversations, half engaged in goals, half committed to dreams. Or you can live deeply, fully engaged, fully aware, fully alive. When you operate with depth, you notice what others miss. You see patterns. You connect ideas. You feel clarity instead of chaos. Depth slows time down because you're finally in it. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop chasing everything and start mastering one thing. That's where progress hides. Not in speed, in depth. Remember this: scattered focus creates scattered results. Deep focus creates compound results. Every time you immerse fully, you collapse the timeline of mastery. You move 10 steps while others move 1. That's why deep learners leap ahead. They're training the brain at full intensity while everyone else is distracted by noise. So stop measuring your effort in hours. Start measuring it in depth units. Did you go deep today? Did you enter full concentration? Did you feel time disappear? If yes, you made progress. If no, you just moved your hands, not your mind. And when you realize how powerful deep focus is, you start craving it. Because nothing feels better than total immersion. No distraction can match the satisfaction of flow. When the world fades away and only the work remains, that's when you're alive. Depth is not restriction, it's liberation. It frees you from chaos, from noise, from wasted time. It gives you back your edge. So train for it. Fight for it. Defend it. Because the world is designed to steal your focus. Every app, every alert, every headline competes for your attention. The average person loses the war. You can't. Your focus is your weapon. Your depth is your speed. Your ability to stay fully absorbed while others scatter. That's your shortcut. Let's close with the law once more. Depth is the multiplier. Distraction is the tax. Every deep hour compounds your mastery. Every shallow moment slows it down. So when you sit down to learn, don't ask, "How long can I study?" Ask, "How deep can I go?" That question changes everything. That question is the difference between 10 years of busy effort and 1 year of transformation. You don't need more time. You need depth. Train for it daily. Protect it fiercely. Because the 10,000-hour shortcut isn't about working more, it's about working deeply. And the deeper you go, the faster you grow. You've learned how to act. Now you've learned how to focus. But there's one more piece, one that separates those who dabble from those who dominate. It's the force that fuels every deep learner and every peak performer. Chapter 3: Obsession is the shortcut. Skill grows where attention stays. That's the law. And the fastest learners are not the smartest, they're the most obsessed. Obsession is not madness. It's clarity. It's the removal of noise, the rejection of distraction, the narrowing of life down to what truly matters. When you are obsessed, the world simplifies. You stop asking, "What should I work on?" and start declaring, "This is what I do." You stop dipping your toe into a dozen pools. You dive headfirst into one. And when you do, hours start to compound. One obsession executed daily is worth 10 hobbies half done. Because depth compounds. Focus multiplies. Consistency transforms. That's the shortcut most people miss. They think obsession is dangerous. But the real danger is diffusion. You were not designed to chase 100 things. You were designed to commit, to pursue one path with intensity. Every great skill, every great performance, every breakthrough came from someone who stayed. They stayed when it was boring. They stayed when it was hard. They stayed when everyone else quit. That's obsession. Not unhealthy fixation, but disciplined devotion. Kobe Bryant woke up at 4 a.m. to shoot the same shot, over and over, 4 hours before practice even started. He wasn't chasing motivation. He wasn't relying on hype. He was building repetition into his DNA. That's what obsession looks like in the real world. Quiet. Repetitive. Unimpressive to outsiders, unstoppable to insiders. You have a choice. You can be interested or you can be obsessed. Interest is seasonal. Obsession is permanent. Interest fades when it's inconvenient. Obsession adapts. Interest wants excitement. Obsession wants progress. That's the key. Obsession doesn't depend on emotion. It depends on structure, ritual, repetition. When you're obsessed, you don't need to be told to practice. You can't not practice. You don't need reminders, you need restraint. Because obsession gives you an identity. It tells your brain, "This is who I am. This is what I do." And when your identity shifts, your behavior follows automatically. Here's the truth: every great performer is obsessive. They may not call it that, but it's the same engine. Writers who wake up before dawn to get their pages done. Athletes who run drills long after the lights go out. Musicians who practice one measure until it's flawless. That isn't luck. That isn't talent. That's obsession. They've chosen to give their full attention to one skill, one mission, one craft. And that attention compounds like interest in a bank account. One day of focus doesn't change you. 10 years of it makes you unstoppable. Most people never give themselves that chance. They scatter their focus. They chase trends, switch goals, restart every few months. They keep asking, "What's next?" instead of asking, "What's deeper?" They confuse motion for mastery. And every time they reset, they lose momentum. You don't need a new direction. You need a new level of obsession with the one you already have. Stay. Go deeper. Because skill doesn't come from exposure, it comes from immersion. Obsession is how you collapse time. When you pour total attention into one pursuit, the learning curve bends. You see faster improvement because your brain starts mapping everything back to your craft. Every conversation, every experience, every observation becomes raw material. The world starts teaching you because your focus tells it what to notice. You stop living randomly. You start living deliberately. Obsession trains your perception. You begin to see what others miss. You pick up details, patterns, micro-adjustments that casual learners overlook. That's what separates amateurs from masters, the ability to see what others can't. But let's be clear, this kind of focus has a price. It costs comfort. It costs balance. It costs approval. Most people won't understand your obsession. They'll call it extreme, unhealthy, obsessive. They're right, it is extreme. Because greatness is extreme. Because mastery requires imbalance. Temporary, strategic imbalance. The truth is, the road to mastery is not balanced. It's focused. You can't learn at an extraordinary level by living an ordinary schedule. You have to make peace with being misunderstood. You have to accept that what looks unhealthy to the average mind is necessary to the exceptional one. You don't need their permission. You need your own commitment. Obsession doesn't mean burnout. It means direction. It means you know what matters enough to give it everything. When you are obsessed with progress, you don't quit when you're tired. You rest with purpose. You don't chase random input. You refine what already works. You don't search for new distractions. You build mastery through controlled repetition. That's how compounding works. Every session builds on the last. Every repetition refines the system. Every hour in obsession multiplies what came before it. That's why 1 year of obsession can produce 10 years of progress. That's the shortcut. Let's break it down. Step 1. Identify your craft. The one skill that unlocks everything else. What's the one thing that, if mastered, makes everything easier or unnecessary? Step 2. Eliminate the noise. One focus. One pursuit. One goal. Everything else becomes background. Step 3. Schedule your obsession. Make it visible. Morning rituals, practice blocks, weekly targets. Obsession thrives in structure. Step 4. Measure depth, not time. Don't ask, how long did I work? Ask, how deep did I go? That's how you turn obsession from a feeling into a discipline. Remember, obsession is misunderstood because most people associate it with imbalance or burnout. But what they call obsession, you'll call devotion. What they call crazy, you'll call clarity. Because while they dabble, you'll dominate. While they hesitate, you'll execute. While they balance everything, you'll master something. That's the trade. That's the cost of acceleration. That's the difference between potential and performance. Repeat this until it becomes instinct. Skill grows where attention stays. Where your focus goes, your future grows. Everything you want to master lives on the other side of obsession. It's not about talent. It's not about luck. It's about the depth of your attention and the consistency of your devotion. That's the law. That's the shortcut. Your focus is your weapon. Your depth is your speed. Your ability to stay fully absorbed while others scatter. That's your shortcut. Let's close with the law once more. Depth is the multiplier. Distraction is the tax. Every deep hour compounds your mastery. Every shallow moment slows it down. So when you sit down to learn, don't ask, how long can I study? Ask, how deep can I go? That question changes everything. That question is the difference between 10 years of busy effort and 1 year of transformation. You don't need more time. You need depth. Train for it daily. Protect it fiercely. Because the 10,000-hour shortcut isn't about working more. It's about working deeply. And the deeper you go, the faster you grow. You've learned how to act. Now you've learned how to focus. But there's one more piece. One that separates those who dabble from those who dominate. It's the force that fuels every deep learner and every peak performer. Chapter 4. Break skills into systems. Stop aiming for fluent. Stop chasing expert. Stop waiting until you've arrived. That language kills momentum. Because mastery isn't an event. It's a system. Systems outperform goals every time. A goal gives you direction. A system gives you progress. Goals depend on motivation. Systems depend on repetition. That's the difference between dreamers and doers. Dreamers chase goals. Doers build systems. If you want to learn anything fast and deep, stop thinking about where you want to be. Start thinking about what you do daily. Because success doesn't come from intensity. It comes from consistency. Not what you do once, but what you do every day without fail. That's what a system does. It removes decision. It removes emotion. It removes friction. You don't wake up asking, do I feel like practicing? You just practice, because the system demands it. That's how mastery happens quietly, invisibly, automatically. Small systems done daily rewrite the brain. That's your anchor. Repeat it until it becomes instinct. Think about it this way: every complex skill is just a collection of small, simple components. When you break them apart, they become manageable. When you practice them consistently, they become automatic. That's the principle of chunking. You don't learn piano by trying to play songs. You learn by mastering microsystems, finger drills, rhythm, ear training, chord transitions. Each one becomes a small machine that runs on its own. Eventually, those machines combine. They operate together. And suddenly the complex becomes simple. You didn't get better at piano, you automated pieces of it. That's how the brain works. It doesn't master wholes, it masters chunks. Every skill follows this pattern. You want to get fit? Don't set a goal to get in shape. Build a system. Wake up at 6, stretch, train for 45 minutes, track your reps, track your food. You want to be fluent in a language? Don't obsess over being fluent. Build a system. 20 minutes of vocabulary drills, 20 minutes of conversation, 10 minutes of review. Repeat daily. You want to grow a business? Stop setting income goals. Build systems. Lead generation every morning, outreach every afternoon, review metrics every Friday. Systems shrink mountains into daily steps. And daily steps are what rewrite your reality. You have a choice. You can live in goals, or you can live in systems. Goals are about results. Systems are about process. Goals are emotional highs and lows. Systems are steady, unemotional rhythm. Most people fail because they chase results and ignore process. They say, "I'll be happy when I reach X." But reaching X depends on 1,000 small actions they never systemized. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. That's the truth. That's the anchor. A system is a machine that doesn't care how you feel. That's why it works. Motivation fades. Emotion changes. But systems run regardless. When you wake up tired, the system still runs. When you're not inspired, the system still runs. When you want to quit, the system carries you forward. That's how elite performers operate. They don't rely on energy, they rely on structure. They've built invisible architectures around their goals. Schedules, checklists, rituals. Every day follows a pattern that pulls them toward mastery. They don't need to feel ready. They just follow the system. And here's the key: systems don't have to be complicated. They just have to be repeatable. 1 hour a day of structured practice beats 10 hours of scattered intensity. Because the brain thrives on repetition and predictability. When you repeat something the same way at the same time, in the same pattern, your mind recognizes it as important. Neurons fire in the same pathways again and again until they become highways. That's how habits become skills. That's how effort becomes instinct. So ask yourself, what's your system? What's the daily mechanism that guarantees progress no matter what? If you can't answer that, you don't have control, you have hope. Let's look again at the myth of talent. People look at masters and say, they're gifted. No, they're systemized. They've built patterns around improvements so solid they can't fail. A violinist doesn't practice randomly. They have scales, bow drills, rhythm routines, performance reviews. That's a system. A writer doesn't wait for inspiration. They write at the same time in the same place for the same length every day. That's a system. A world-class athlete doesn't wake up and guess. Their training, nutrition, and recovery are systems. Talent may start the journey. Systems finish it. Here's how you build yours. Step 1. Define the core skill. What is the one ability that moves the needle the most? Identify it clearly. Step 2. Break it into micro-components. List every small motion, pattern, or sub-skill. Don't guess, observe. Step 3. Design the daily loop. Assign each micro-skill to a short, repeatable session. Keep it measurable. Step 4. Automate the trigger. Same time, same cue every day. This is what makes the system stick. It removes choice. Step 5. Track feedback, not feelings. You don't need to feel progress. You need to see metrics. That's it. Simple. Predictable. Powerful. You've built a learning engine that runs on autopilot. Once your system is running, trust it. Don't tweak it every week. Don't overthink it. Consistency beats innovation in the early stages. Remember, the system is the shortcut. Every repetition compounds. Every cycle engraves the pattern deeper into your nervous system. And over time, what once took effort becomes automatic. That's how mastery looks from the inside. Automatic excellence built from deliberate systems. Small systems done daily rewrite the brain. That's not poetry. That's neuroscience. So stop setting goals you can't sustain. Stop measuring your success by what you wish for. Measure it by the quality of your systems. Because a system is a promise to yourself. It's proof that you're done relying on motivation. It's a declaration that you're building mastery brick by brick, day by day. You don't need to know where you'll be in a year. You just need to know what you'll do tomorrow. And the day after. And the day after that. That's how the shortcut works. Repetition replaces willpower. Structure replaces struggle. And suddenly, learning becomes automatic. You've learned to act. You've learned to focus. You've learned to stay obsessed. And now you've built the engine that turns all of that into consistent, unstoppable motion. But every system you build will be tested. By distraction, by temptation, by noise. And to protect it, you must master one final rule. Knowing what matters most. Because mastery isn't about doing everything. It's about doing the right few things perfectly. Chapter 5. The 80 of 20 of Mastery. Here's the truth that most people never face. You're doing too much. You're learning too much. You're scattering your energy across everything, and mastering nothing. Because in mastery, more is not better. Better is better. And the difference between the two will decide your entire trajectory. The rule is simple, brutal, and liberating. 80% of your results come from 20% of your actions. That's the 80-20 of mastery. Your job is to find the 20 that matters, and burn everything else. The greatest performers, thinkers, creators, and athletes on earth all live by this law, whether they call it that or not. They don't do more, they do less but better. They don't study everything, they perfect the essentials. They don't chase novelty, they repeat the fundamentals until they're untouchable. That's the mindset of mastery. That's how you learn faster, grow deeper, and stay unshakable. Identify the critical 20%. Focus only there. That's your command. Let's break it down. Every skill, no matter how complex, has a few moves that matter most. A few drills that give you most of the progress. A few patterns that separate amateurs from experts. If you can find those, isolate them, and train them relentlessly, you can skip years of wasted effort. Language learners who focus on the top 1,000 words become conversational while others still memorize grammar rules. Athletes who master one perfect form outpace those who dabble in 20 techniques. Writers who repeat one timeless sentence pattern develop rhythm while others drown in style. The principle is clear. Don't learn everything. Learn the part that changes everything. That's the 80-20 of mastery. Here's what most people do wrong. They treat all actions as equal. They think every hour is worth the same, every exercise moves them forward equally. But that's a lie. 80% of your effort produces little or nothing. It's busy work disguised as progress. Feels productive. Keeps you comfortable. But comfort is the enemy of precision. Real progress, the kind that compounds, comes from identifying the few actions that actually move the needle. Everything else is distraction dressed as diligence. You don't need to do more reps. You need to do the right reps. You don't need more volume. You need more precision. Most people are consistent at the wrong things. That's why they stay stuck. You have a choice. You can be busy or you can be effective. You can scatter your hours across everything or invest them in what matters. To master a skill, your focus must become surgical. You must analyze your process and ask, what are the few actions that create the biggest improvement? And then, cut the rest. This is hard. Feels wrong. Because letting go feels like losing control. But it's not loss, it's leverage. When you eliminate what doesn't matter, you don't shrink your potential. You multiply it. You stop diluting your focus. You stop feeding noise. You create clarity. And clarity accelerates progress. Think of your learning like a pyramid. The foundation is small but powerful. The top looks impressive, but it's supported by the base. Most people start at the top, trying to master advanced techniques before they've built a foundation. They crumble fast. But those who spend time mastering the 20%, the essential foundational skills, build something unshakable. You can't skip fundamentals. You can only ignore them long enough to realize you need them. So start with what matters. What's the one move, one phrase, one repetition that everything else depends on? That's your 20%. Let's make it real. If you're learning to code, focus on logic before libraries. If you're learning to speak, focus on rhythm before grammar. If you're learning to lead, focus on listening before speaking. If you're building a business, focus on customers before branding. Every domain has a core. The elite identify it fast. The average ignore it forever. You don't have time to do everything. But you do have time to do what matters most, if you have the discipline to cut. That's mastery, the courage to simplify, the strength to repeat, the wisdom to stop chasing everything. Here's how you apply the 80-20 in your own pursuit. Step 1. Audit your effort. Track everything you do for a week. Be honest. What's actually creating change? What's just motion? Step 2. Identify the needle movers. Find the few actions that produce the most results. Double down on them. Step 3. Eliminate or automate the rest. Outsource it, ignore it, or delete it from your schedule completely. Step 4. Build your system around the vital few. Design your day around the 20% that matters. Do it first, do it deeply, do it daily. That's the structure of mastery. Simple, focused, relentless. When you live by the 80-20 rule, you realize something profound. Mastery is not about adding, it's about subtracting. Every level of growth demands less, not more. The beginner wants to try everything. The master wants to refine one thing. The beginner collects methods. The master repeats systems. The beginner wants to know more. The master wants to understand deeper. The fewer moving parts, the fewer excuses. The fewer choices, the faster you move. That's why clarity beats complexity. That's why simplicity wins. Remember this, you can't master everything. You're not supposed to. The goal is not to know it all, the goal is to know what matters most. If you master the 20%, the other 80% takes care of itself. Because every domain, every discipline, every art has leverage points, the few areas that determine everything else. Master those and you become untouchable. Stop studying endlessly. Stop chasing details that don't move you forward. Stop adding layers of complication to hide your lack of focus. Simplify. Simplify until it hurts. Simplify until it's powerful. That's the path to deep learning. That's the path to mastery. You don't need more time, you need better targeting. You don't need more input, you need sharper selection. You don't need to do more, you need to do what matters. That's how the greats move faster than everyone else. They're not superhuman, they're selective. They see what matters and they devote everything to it. That's the hidden speed of mastery. That's the essence of the shortcut. You've now built the full engine. You've learned to execute. You've learned to focus deeply. You've learned to obsess. You've built systems. And now you've learned what to keep and what to kill. This is where mastery begins. This is where the shortcut becomes real. 80% of your results come from 20% of your effort. Find your 20. Double down. Delete the rest. That's how you learn fast. That's how you learn deep. That's how you build a life that compounds every single day. This isn't just a rule, it's a command. Simplify. Focus. Multiply. That's the 80-20 of mastery. And that's your shortcut. You've reached the end of this journey, but in truth, this is where the real work begins. Execution. Depth. Obsession. Systems. Focus. You have every tool you need. The question now is simple. Will you use them? Because mastery doesn't live in your notes. It lives in your next move. The 10,000-hour myth is dead. The shortcut is real. Start now. Start small. Start with the 20%. And don't stop until the ordinary can't recognize you anymore. This is the 10,000-hour shortcut. Now go prove it.